I'm here today with Sam Brodersen, Cardinals, Doug Nikhazy, Cleveland Guardians. We're going to talk biggest jumps of their career. So a few things behind the mindset, the physical traits that improved, and what happened there. So just start off, when was the biggest jump in your career, Doug, and kind of how did it happen?
I think my biggest jump was probably last year, honestly. I was debating between two, right when I got to college, my freshman year of college, and this one. But this one, I think a whole lot more went into it on the physical side. So I think it's more interesting to talk about, too. But
Okay.
I do think it is the biggest one.
Yeah, for me, I would say my biggest jump was either my freshman spring of college or this past year, my senior spring. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things go into it for me and Doug. I know for me, it was a lot about getting stronger and really learning to use my body well off the mound. I mean, Doug can talk more about what gave him his jumps. But.
So freshman year of college, start with that one. That was the first one, right? What was the biggest difference for you? Was it a mindset thing? Was it a physical thing? What happened where you kind of took off?
Going into it, I don't think I made a whole lot of physical adjustments. I got a lot bigger. I went from kind of being a boy to somewhat small man.
Strength,
yes, I had man strength by the time I left my freshman year, and that was like my first time really getting in the weight room, moving a lot of weight
with
around.
A good program.
Yes, with a good program. So that was a factor. On the mound, I don't think a whole lot changed for me in the way that I moved that year from high school to that freshman year of college. But I think a lot happened on the mental side of it with Mike Bianco, Carl Lafferty, and that crew over at Ole Miss, and the way that they taught young men into believing in themselves.
Yeah.
And that made a huge jump for me. Instead of throwing something and kind of just picking a pitch versus like having conviction in a pitch because I have a reason to throw it. I just think my baseball IQ jumped through the roof being around better baseball people that year,
Sure.
which contributed to that jump for me.
Was there something too as well that of like more locked in, like it's no longer I can out physical people on the field with like I'm natural ability and like, oh crap, I need to actually pay attention to what's going on? Because you came from a historically really good high school program with good coaches. I think a lot of people just don't pay attention in high school baseball because they don't need to.
Yeah. No, I think I got my butt kicked that whole freshman fall, and it taught me to have to learn the finer points of the game to beat people. I think if you just bully people on the mound, you never learn how to pitch.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I sat there and had to read swings, learn where hitters' deficiencies were, or even just learning what I did really good and like playing off of that. In high school, I could just bully people, I guess, with my fastball. And then that was a huge jump for me of like watching the game, not just doing rah-rah BS, like but watching it, trying to figure out what hitters couldn't do well and attacking that.
Yeah. Sam, if you could talk about your freshman year, because it's pretty interesting. You were basically getting some innings at the beginning of the year as like, hey, do you have it? Let's give you a chance. Mm-hmm. And then as the year went on, you picked up more and more and more to where you got the final out of the World Series. Like what happened during that spring?
Yeah, I mean, going into the spring, I really didn't have any idea what my role was going to be. I think maybe the second weekend of the season, it was like the 8th inning of the last game. It was like 30 degrees outside. And I had put my turfs back on because I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not pitching. Yeah. Rookie move looking back at it.
Always a big mistake.
And then all of a sudden they radio down, say Brodersen get hot. So put my cleats on real quick and made the most of the opportunity, and then it kind of just grew from there to where it was, okay, you're pitching when we're down 10, get us 3 outs, eat some innings. Yeah. Okay, you're pitching when we're down 5, try and keep us in it. Okay, you're pitching when we're up 5, hold the lead, and then it kind of just blossoms from there. So I think it's a testament to just being ready for your opportunity because you never know when it's going to come. I mean, I had my turfs on just making the most of it.
But what about on the physical side of things? Because that was the first time, I know your high school career a little bit better than Doug's, that was the first time where you'd gotten like consistent innings, it seemed like. Besides like, summer ball is what it is, you're pitching here and there. But even then, you were pretty inconsistent strike thrower, so you weren't like racking up innings.
Yeah.
So you didn't really have like much of a body of work going into college. Yeah. So what happened physically in that spring where you started putting it all together?
Well, I think it probably starts in the fall. I mean, going back to high school, I think I had 10 varsity innings in my career, 12 varsity innings in my career. I ended up getting recruited because of power baseball. And then going to Wingate in the fall, it had been the most I'd ever thrown in my life. Like, 3 or 4 months of pitching every weekend, throwing every day. So I think that went into it a lot, is just getting my body ready for that. And my body started to adapt that spring. and then in-game adrenaline and that intensity, you're going to start throwing harder. I also think it's just, I've been with RSP for 7 years now, so I think it was just an accumulation of all that work I'd put in here finally starting to see itself on the field. I was gaining velo slowly, and then all of a sudden it clicked, and I think, it was a big testament to what we did here.
2.5 years of work basically before you started to see like the big payoff?
3, probably closer to 3, yeah.
So, I mean, again, it's never a short-term thing where you really see the big jump. Doug, talk about your last offseason, because that was interesting what you were doing with kind of redoing your arm slot and then understanding how your stuff would play from a new arsenal, so to speak.
I think last year was really interesting for me because I was going into uncharted waters. For context, you know this, but they don't know this. Like coming out of the year before, kind of a disaster year for me. Like I'm trying to work towards being a better strike thrower. I throw strikes at a less clip after that year. I'm throwing the same way I've thrown my entire life, which is just right over the top, and the ball's missing really high, sometimes spiking the ball down low, but really just have no feel for the zone at all. Still getting swing and miss, but going into that offseason, having exit meetings with my coaches, they told me, hey, we are seeing the best strike throwing out of the arm slots that show up the lowest. I've never been good at controlling exactly where my arm is in space. So
which probably also leads to throwing balls.
Exactly, yeah. If you can't replicate your motion, it's going to be hard to throw strikes. But I would throw some from here and then some all the way down to here, and they noticed like, hey, you're throwing a lot of strikes from down here. Like we need to move you further down to a 3/4 arm action. And I think that's an important point about what made the offseason successful for me was I wasn't just throwing stuff at the wall until it sticked. They came to me with really quantifiable data,
yes,
and we attacked something that we thought we could see results in. And that's the important part that made the offseason such a success. So I came back here, sat down with you, told you I'm doing not like a rehaul, but like kind of a reinventing of myself.
Yeah.
And like I need this to really cater towards my throwing, and this workout program needs to make sure that my throwing is 100% first. And we got after it. We worked tirelessly. We were in here all the time working our butts off. Spent a lot of time in Arizona trying to just nail it down, throwing from a lower arm slot. I'm constantly wanting to raise. Like I always wanted to raise because it was where I was comfortable, especially as I would throw like more pitches it would want to raise. But by the time spring training rolled around, it felt natural. I went out there, I was throwing harder, throwing more strikes, and it led to
good combination.
Yeah, my best season, of course. Like the two, probably the most important things you can do.
Okay, last thing I want to touch on with this conversation is making changes to become better. Because obviously we're talking about jumps, like there were changes that were made. Sam, your biggest struggle, probably your sophomore and junior year, was trying to make too many changes. Mm-hmm. And like always looking for like arm path too long, arm path too short. Am I doing this with my back leg and fidgeting too much? Mm-hmm. And part of that is coming back with like, you're in a pro organization that does a really good job with data and explaining it to people. So now you're committed to what's going on. Where if you're at a college program that doesn't have every resource in the world, it's tougher to be like, this is exactly what I need to do. So talk about how you kind of transformed through college of like, basically one bad outing led to like, I need to rehaul my mechanics in my arm slot to this is who I am and my stuff's good enough to play.
When I was a younger kid, if I had one bad outing, I thought, okay, I'm doing something wrong. Something needs to change, when that's not reality. You're going to have bad outings in pitching. The best pitchers in the world have bad outings. So I think away from baseball, it comes down to a mentality thing where it's like, failure isn't final. You can grow from it, and the world's not ending because you have a bad outing. So I think that was the first thing that needed to get into my head was I'm going to have failure and it's going to be okay. I'm going to grow from it, and I'm going to have bounce back outings. So once it took me a long time to understand that, probably, over a year to really understand that. And then once I finally did, I saw my performance on the field really elevate. So I think going back to what Doug was saying with the Guardians, they found what he was good at and they attacked something. So I think me being in college, I kind of had to do that myself. So maybe it took a little bit longer than it takes pro guys, but I finally found what I was good at. My fastball's good up in the zone, and I have a good slider. And I just hammered those things until they were finally consistent. And that's when I found success.
And that was your jump this year, your senior year, spring?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So just a quick glimpse into some of the mindset and physical adjustments that guys that have made the jump to pro ball have made over the years. We're going to do more content like this offseason, try to get younger kids more access into the mindset and into the adjustments and into the work ethic that these guys put forth so that they understand what it takes to get to the next level. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave a comment, and tell us whatever you're struggling with, and we will get you some content on that. And make sure you're tuning in because we'll have a lot more of this coming.